Hello, Dr. Schooling, and thank you again for allowing me to participate in class remotely or virtually this evening. What I'm going to do here is I'm using an app called Screencastify to record my voice while also encapsulating my screen so I can talk through the different pieces of the assignments that we had that were due today. What I'm going to do first is just kind of walk through my averages on the 15 items, and then I'll go into the 40 questions. So for the first item, community involvement, I'm analyzing the high school where I work. I've been involved in working in this high school for the past 14 years, but recently took over as the high school principal this past August. So for me, this is a good exercise. It just gave me the time to really think about where we are today, and also more importantly, think about laying out steps for where we need to be and the direction that we need to move in these different areas. So for the first item, community involvement, I rated our school as a 3. We are a very secure school in that we try our best to make sure that the people that come in and out of our building are there for purposeful reasons. We're actually implementing a new system called Lobby Guard as we speak, trying to do minor background checks on all people that come in as visitors. However, with this sense of insecurity that I'm sure is prevalent across the Commonwealth, unfortunately, we don't have the same level of parent participation as we probably could have. There's so much regulation in place as far as the amount of clearances that people need to have to be into our buildings, which I think in many cases dissuades people from being a part of it. So my big takeaway from here is try to create more opportunities for community engagement, specifically in the planning and implementation of different ideas that we have. We do have a PTO, however, at the high school level, it's not as robust as it could be. So this is another area of focus as a way that we could possibly infuse some more in community engagement with our stakeholders in the organization. When we look at the school buildings and grounds, I rated this a 4. Again, a lot of these are kind of subjective. I can go back and forth between 3, 3.5, 4, or even 2.5. So school buildings, we have a very old building. We actually years ago moved from a middle school or a junior high model in our school district to 2 middle schools and 1 high school building. And at that time, we took over a middle school and made it part of our high school. So we have an upper house and a lower house facility. 2 schools on 1 campus without any attachment. So kids have to walk in and out every day to go back and forth between classes. We have 2 cafeterias and basically 2 of everything, 2 gyms because it was 2 schools. We have 130 exterior doors, which is definitely a problem as far as safety is concerned. And we have very plain colored walls. Classrooms were built in the 40s and 50s, with the exception of some of our additions. But again, that space is kind of, it reminds me of a hospital situation as opposed to a public high school. So it's really trying to focus on that area as well. Outside grounds are very good. We have brand new facilities for athletics. However, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Again, like I said, with classroom space, which takes me into the next area. And it's kind of a mixed bag here in classroom space. I rated it a 2 because we are old. It's very much set up in an industrial manner. However, there's been a lot of professional conversations with our staff and students, regarding inquiry and what the role of the teacher should be versus the role of the student. Are we designed to create and allow for movement in the classroom? Does our space define the instructional beliefs that we have? And I think in some cases, many cases, unfortunately, it does. So having more of a flexible space, even though the walls can't physically change, would be advantageous here. So maybe more flexible tables, things on wheels, more of a modular space. I think that would be very helpful. Next category is organizational knowledge. You see I ranked it at 3.5. I would say that it's our organizational knowledge is probably best described as like spiraling. It allows for some flexibility and choice, but it still holds students accountable for the minimal standard. Being a high school, again, a lot of what we have here is choice. We are, again, like I said earlier, trying to move to more of a student-centered type of an environment that does allow for choice for students. But as you know, it is a very difficult thing to do. It's difficult in that you have to move 140 people in the same direction. I would argue not at the same time, but nonetheless, moving 140 people is very difficult. Next one is use of materials. I actually think this is a strength for Wilson. I rated this a 4 because we do have so many students in our school and our teachers with access to technology. As this book mentioned, as we have talked about and other studies have reported, access to the internet 24 hours a day, which allows you to access content, class material. It promotes 21st century skills. It allows for teachers to be more flexible and creative with the choice that they give students. It allows for varied types of formative and summative assessments. I just think that it's really, if schools that aren't moving in this direction are really at a loss, because it also, not having devices, not having technology, not having specifically access to the internet, really forces teachers to still rely heavily on textbooks, which is, as we all know, not a strong enough curriculum. Philosophy education, again, still varied. Each department at Wilson High School seems to be a little bit different. I rated this at 3.5. Some teachers in our math department are still what I would consider very didactic. However, there are a lot of teachers, specifically social studies, English language arts, and our specials, that are really starting to move more to more of an inquiry approach, student-centered, planning for questions, and really looking at domain 3C engagement and having conversations around what that means. What does rigor mean? What does engagement mean for every child every day? Again, huge amount of work is still left in this area, but the conversations and the philosophy is starting to change for the positive. Teaching strategies, again, an area that's 3.5. We have some teaming going on in some areas. We have an integrated STEM course where our ninth graders, about half of our ninth grade students, participate in an integrated experience in science, math, and engineering. I'm really focusing again on the 4 C's and collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and communication. Those teachers actually have a common planning period, which does promote meaningful collaboration and co-teaching. We also have co-teaching throughout other department areas for our students with IEPs in the major core subjects. Our focus area here is really just to try to provide them with more common planning time. Staffing patterns, teachers, hired like in most other high schools based off of qualifications and certifications. We tend to place them in classes based off of a variety of factors, which include scheduling needs. Unfortunately, our schedule drives a lot of the work that we do. I say unfortunately, however, you could argue that is a positive in that the students design their schedules. So you could use that as a positive, having the schedule drive the teacher's needs because you're placing the students first. Obviously, the needs of students are paramount. We have students with IEPs, students that have particular curricular focal areas, or possibly they're involved in academies, which kind of ebb and flow throughout different years. So we always look at those different pieces when we're trying to create our staffing. And then lastly, just looking at the teacher's strengths. Some teachers are really good at working with certain types of students, whereas others aren't. My philosophy is to try to accentuate those people's strengths as opposed to maybe always focusing on areas that they need to improve. But again, this is a difficult topic in high school because some teachers have data, high stakes data assigned to them, whereas others do not. Next category, community or organization of students. This is an area that's a little bit challenging for us just because, as we know, students are kind of all over the place. Sorry about that. I had to take a little break. So looking at the chart here, I rate organization of students as a 4. Basically looking at the criteria, and which it said by student needs, but then also grouping patterns by students said by tasks to be performed. So this is really kind of a subjective piece for me because I could argue that any one of these is true. By age and grade, yes. By subject taken, yes. By student capacity, absolutely, because we have different bands and different levels, whether it's CP, honors, or AP. And then also I could argue for 5 because by student interest. Our student schedules, especially in the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade year, are driven by students, and there's a lot of choice in their schedules. So I try to really kind of just do the best I could to average them out, and I rated the school as a current 4. Rules and regulations. Again, this is a kind of a tricky area. I'm going to kind of lump the next 2 together, whether it's rules and regulations or disciplinary measures. We are a large high school. We have 2,000 students. 30% of our students are minority, and 30% come from free and reduced lunch. This is definitely a changing demographic for us that has brought about some different challenges and also forced us to think about what we do in different ways. So I would mark both of these as a 2 as far as our hierarchy is concerned. Reporting student progress is